It's authentic.
Welcome back to Hear Us Out, the music and media blueprint brought to you by myself, River, and my girl, Lottie. Y'all, today we have a really fire guest with us. What's up, Celena? How are you? Welcome to Hear Us Out, the music and media blueprint. We're so excited. How's
Hey,
how's
y'all.
it
Thank you
going?
so much for having me.
Yes,
Good,
we
good.
love it. We
Yeah.
love it. For those of you who are just now joining us, welcome. And for those of you who are returning, it's good to see you again. We're having some fire currency conversations with some of our favorite creative executives, creatives in general, creative entrepreneurs, all of it. So we're really super excited to have Celena with us today. Let's jump into it. Let's get into it. So talk to us. How would you say you identify creatively and professionally in the world of music and media?
Yes. So I would say corporately, I am the head of artist relations at Even, a direct-to-consumer platform, really empowering artists and fans to invest in one another. I'm also co-founder of The Nucleus, which is a creative management company between myself and three other women. And collectively, we represent about, don't want to say 7 clients. I feel like it's growing from the consultant side of things, but anywhere from singer-songwriters to producers, jazz bands, rappers, so on and so forth. I would say creatively, I'm like a stage mom behind the scenes. I'm very much so a human connector and really prioritize that above everything else. But I'm really just a vessel pushing art. That's really it. But yeah, I think it's the best way to describe me.
I love that human connector bit because you know what they say about the music industry, the music business. Ooh, I did a thing there. It is a relationships business above all else. So that dot connecting is important, but I really love how eclectic the work that you do is now. I'd love for you to walk us through your career trajectory in the music industry, and you can feel free to highlight any key milestones or experiences that really shaped your journey.
Definitely. I don't think a lot of people know that before working in music, I was in sports. Pretty much my whole career was centered around sports. Although I'm sitting down, I'm the shortest in my family at 6'1". I had zero athletic skills whatsoever, so decided to take the marketing route when it came to sports. So pretty much all of my college and internships experience was centered around that. Upon graduating, I went to Creative Artists Agency and I became a sports consulting intern. So I really worked along the team to develop not only partnerships or strategy for their blue chip brands across stadiums and arenas, but also for athletes as well. Even some crossover on the music side. Like I think at the time they were working on a deal with Chase and working with Beyonce and Jay-Z for On the Run tour. So had to go into arenas and figure out how to amplify that and build strategy and also work in between scheduling for playoffs and regular in-season games. So that was a lot of fun. I've always had a passion for music. I was definitely that kid that would in middle school take my friends' iPods home for the weekend and curate it. Everything from at the time to like screamo emo bands to like Flo Rida and the Pack and Ging Gang Twins. I was always that girl that always took the aux in the car, always at the party would beg to have the aux. And sometimes I'd get the LimeWire version, sometimes it would be the right versions, but you never know what you're gonna get. But that's what I loved about it. And then I would say during my internship at CAA, I met this really amazing woman who was working in the concerts admin department. And really what that is someone who just knocks out all the contracts for the agents, sends them to the promoters to make sure things get signed off. She came up to me, this brown chick, and she was like, "What are you listening to? Like, press me." And I was like, this girl named Nora. And she's like, "Nora? You know her? She's an Arab princess. She's like the R&B shorty from Jersey." I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, it's her." And she goes, "How do you know about her?" I was like, "SoundCloud." But it was like my first ever interaction with her. But from there, I would say that, we hit it off instantly. Um, she pretty much took me under her wing. I would kind of sit there on her smoke breaks and just listen to her industry stories. And I really enjoyed my time just kind of learning and getting to know what it looked like for her as like a manager, and then, focusing on things from the side of her being in the studio and all of that too. So it was really exciting. Long story short, she ended up giving me an opportunity to talk to ICM Partners, which is now folded under CA. She's like, yo, I interviewed for this job. I don't think it's for me, but I think it's for you. You should sign up for it. And I basically just cold emailed, ended up going through a month-long process, got the job. My first job in music was a music assistant. So worked for Caroline Yem and Zach Iser, big icons in the business. So I was helping to book shows and route tours and do branding deals for hip hop and R&B acts. Everything from at the time really emerging to like Daniel Caesar and Kamaya and Janae Aiko to Kendrick Lamar and SZA, Ray Schremer and Future, all of that. I knew pretty much instantly I didn't want to be an agent. I cried like pretty much every day on the job for like my first month. But you know what? It was probably the best job I've ever had. It gave me like the swiftest boot camp I could ever imagine, and I'm so grateful for it. But after I spent my time there, I went to Apple Music. I was there for about 4 years, focused on Black music marketing, partnership marketing, emerging artist marketing. Ended up doing all the marketing for Up Next, their emerging artists program. So got to spend a lot of time approving commercials or giving artists their first late night debut, short films and everything. It was such a rewarding experience. And I think that really kind of ignited, my passion for artists in a real deep and genuine way. Around the same time, I got with my business partner, started our company. But I also felt like something was missing. Here I am working for this $1 trillion company, turning out campaigns on a weekly, monthly basis, but still feeling like we could be doing more. I feel like we give a lot of visibility and opportunities, but I'm like, why are we not giving them laptops, maybe iPads, things to continue to create? So I guess for lack of better terms, I felt like, oh, that feels a little icky. Ended up going to Sony in the Orchard. I was working for Jay Irving's imprint of human resources, and served as VP of streaming and strategy for them. Did a lot of fun campaigns with a lot of emerging talent, from a guy named Siv Pierre to bachata artist Najavi Leons. Ray, got to work on her campaign for a bit before departing to LVRN and was VP of marketing there for their label side. So got to again work with amazing emerging talent, from Eli Derby, Alex Vaughn, Sad Boy, BRS Cash, North Ave Jax. It was so much fun. So I'm super grateful for that. Kind of took a step back and really tried to figure out what I wanted to do. Marketing was kind of burning me out. And I think anyone who's ever worked in marketing or project management or music management in general, they're all one and the same at this point. So I think now being at Even as the head of artist relations, it really gives me an opportunity to provide resources and equity back into artists and their teams. Also being able to manage a team and support them in their career journey, because outside of all of this, again, I'm a human connector, so development is really important to me. So I'm just super excited for continued growth. So I've been working in music, I want to say the last 7 or 8 years, and it feels way longer, and I'm super blessed to even be in the position I am. I'm only 29, and so I'm just very grateful that I have been able to do so much in such a short amount of time. And I don't think that many people know that. And that's neither here nor there. But I think at the end of the day, the thing that remains constant for me is that I'm always going to help people. And that's been like a through line of my journey. So yeah, very long intro, but that's me. That's how I got started, what I've been doing.
We love it.
Yeah.
We love the details.
So now I know Forbes 30 Under 30 nominee, got it, because that is like
Literally
a lifetime of a career before 30. That is like, you really have had a dream career. Like, if people go to, LinkedIn, that's the kind of stuff that they want to have stacked. Agency experience, label experience, boutique label experience, and now music
Thank
tech.
you.
It's like, boxes checked. And I love the fact that you
Thank
spoke
you.
about how you realized the things that you didn't want to do, right? Which is part of what the trajectory is about. It's like, okay, maybe I'm good at this, but not passionate about it, not enjoying it.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've learned across my journey too, right? We work in such an industry where social currency is king, and a lot of times, outside of it being a relationship driven business, we have our highlight reels on Instagram, our LinkedIn, all of that. And I always commend people that are able to just put themselves out there like that. I genuinely have a hard time with it. But I think what I've learned too is that sometimes so many people are just genuinely unhappy and don't like what they do. There's been so many times I've been like joined team meetings or even join meetings with other labels, and people are just talking. I'm like, hey, how are you? And they're like, and I'm like, no, I don't know anymore. I stopped subscribing to that actually. But it's sad. Like, music is meant to be fun. Music is meant to be community driven. Music is meant to be inspiring, not draining. And I think that there's so many variables that take the fun out of it. And so every time I show up to something, that's why I keep coming back to like that human side of thing. It's like I really want people to feel that, and I want them to remember why they're doing it in the first place. Like, this isn't supposed to be painful. And so I feel very grateful to have learned that throughout my career, not making it my identity and knowing that I serve God, and that's how I reap what I sow, and I build my harvest there. And I don't serve, a big three company, and I don't serve, whoever this title is. And I think that perspective has helped me a ton too. So that's why I've gotten to where I'm at genuinely.
I just got to give
Yeah,
snaps to that
that's
because you
yeah. I
have
was
so
about to
much
say
more
so many
like
lines were dropped right
perspective.
there. Hmm. It is, and it's so commendable too because it's the one of the things that we talk about on here often, and it's really cool to just kind of really have the conversation that isn't being had is like the power in the pivot. And you just gave us in your giving us the career trajectory, you really there is so much empowerment in I discovered that it didn't work for me and I decided that I wanted to step back and figure out what I wanted to do next, as opposed to I had a very similar trajectory as you. I graduated, came into the industry on the agency route, then I went into management, boutique management, then I went into a bigger management company, then I went into production, and it was like, okay, for me, I said, you know what, I'm going to treat it like grad school and I'm going to do something different every maybe not every year but every few years so that I could feel like okay, I don't know what it is, I just know I want to be in this industry. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? And I think you just talking through that, it just affirmed like literally every single moment that you said you were doing something else, you said, I took a step back and I thought about what I actually wanted to do. And you led from that place as opposed to the industry being like, you're supposed to do. And really, there's no blueprint in that. You're supposed to do this way. You could do it that way. You could do it this way. But you were like, nah, let me step back. Let me figure out what I want to do, what's aligning with me right now. I know I could be in sports, but I actually really have this burning passion for this other thing, and it's music, and I'm gonna try it, and then I'm gonna try something else in music, and I'm gonna try something else, and I think that that's like that was the gym. That was a gym because we talk about it so much, but it's scary, and we've had so many of our listeners tell us like, you did what? You pivoted. You just left your job. You were about to be promoted and you left and you did this thing. Yeah, because I needed to find what was gonna light me up and keep me going. So I love that. I'm so excited about that. I want to hear you talk to us a little bit about okay, so you walked us through those trajectories, right? You have described several different music experiences. You were in the traditional music setting and now you're literally at an emerging tech music startup. What was that transition like of going into like new music stuff's going on, we got this tech going on, like what made you do that jump?
Yeah, honestly, I think even my transition from ICM to Apple kind of gave me that too. At the time when I joined Apple, Apple Music was only, I think, 4 years old. So like I was still there when it was like Beats One Radio and Beats by Dre was still funneling out that type of content, and then made the transition, saw that from Beats One Radio to Apple Music Radio, and integrating their awards and like their playlist refreshes. So I was right there kind of at the cusp of change. And so I like to think most of my career really exemplifies that. Like even at being at HRS, like just the things that, independent music was, I feel like finally even picking up more traction, especially around Ray. And not LVRN, the same thing. Like their passion and their drivenness as it pertains to like the music business itself and like just being ahead from like an innovation standpoint and what they were trying to offer, like always kind of just been right there. And so I feel like going to even was like just the natural progression. I think more than anything, I love that we're a consumer tech company first. And so it's really fun to kind of be back in that space where I'm thinking like a traditional marketer and not so much an experiential and digital marketer, but really thinking, how do we make this feel as accessible and seem streamlined as possible? And so I always knew that I probably would benefit from being in the type of role that I am. And so to me, yeah, I think more so my thought process is like, I should have did this a lot sooner. Um, that's kind of like what came up for me as I made the transition to even. And I always honestly tell people this is like my most favorite job yet. Like, I absolutely love it. There's not a day where I don't wake up or I'm like, I have this to do, this to do, this to do, but I'm like, what would be really cool if I do X, Y, and Z, and like feeling the support of my team to share those ideas and them riding behind me and like wanting to do it. So I think that when you look at the music landscape and where tech finds its place in it, some aspects feels like the wild, wild west, some aspects don't. I think that we're just slow adapters. I deal with it all the time at my job too, right? It's like people have been doing one thing the same way for so long. So when we come in and you disrupt the system, it's like, is that okay? Or are they gonna be mad at us? And I'm like, they might be, but I mean, what are you gonna do? Not do it? So it's kind of just been like my thought process and like going into like back to tech in a sense, but feeling like there's way more flexibility. I think anyone who's worked at a DSP or just tech in general recognizes a lot of red tape and what the priority is. Apple, obviously, the priority is always going to remain the product and the hardware. Services just make up one part of their ecosystem. And so now being back in this side of tech, I'm like, okay, how do we expand our ecosystem now? Like, what can we learn from others? So I know it's fun. It's like a mix of marketing, mix of artist relations, mix of strategy and business development, but it's new and it's different. And so we're like building it as we're driving it. I think that's like a classic like startup line, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's true. You've technically been working in tech for a long time, but like you said, working at a more established tech company versus a startup, it's like whole different universes in terms of flexibility with experimentation, right? Because there aren't like boards of directors or certain levels of like higher ups you have to go through. Like there's not like 8 levels of legals for something we posted to Twitter or something like that. So it's super interesting hearing about the differences. And I love that you said that you wish you had done this a long time ago, because how many of us think that being in our like current space, right? It's like, okay, it took A, B, C, and D experience to get here. But sometimes I wish I skipped D to get to this point. But at the same time, it's
Yeah.
all a part of the journey.
You're so right. And I think also too, it's like we get so comfortable in the sense of like we're at this really good company and we stick to it because the name, we stick to it because of the title. I mean, I very much so sip that Kool-Aid at Apple. I'll be the first person to admit it. I felt so comfortable being Celena at Apple.com. Like, I think I remember when I started, like even like my manager was like, whoa, like, how'd you get that email? I'm like, I don't know, so they gave me. But it just felt so comfortable and like, it's like, and I think especially at the time at the real boom of like streaming, right? It's like we were big fish in a pond, and then when I got over to the label side, I'm like, we were tiny fish trying to talk to the big fish. Like, it's just a whole different thing. But I understand why people stay where they stay, regardless of like their sentiments for it. But I really try to not let the title, not let the company name dictate, that anymore. I've learned my lesson through and through. I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah, I hear that. And it's just like, I would love for more people to believe that they're more than their title, they're more than their company, right? Because if we're being honest, none of these companies exist without all of us doing our part, right? So it's like at the end of the day, when you log off and you leave the office, who are you? That's who you really are, not at whatever company email.
Exactly that. And I think also we would just be naive to think that the way that the landscape is shifting, like it could be here today, gone tomorrow. Your jobs can. I've definitely been a part of that where I've been in a position where I've lost my job because of, shift in the company or, or the direction they're going into. And I'm so grateful that it happened when I did. Had it happened to me maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I don't think I would have had the same attitude about it versus now I'm so just, okay, thanks God. Like that wasn't for me. Thank you for redirecting because I would have just stayed there and I would have not listened. And in fact, I haven't been listening. So thanks. But I think you're right. Like at the end of the day, it's like who you are when you log off is most important. And until I think we really, you know, construct a culture within music that feels open and exciting to who we are as humans, like at its core. We'll be slow to that too, but I'm counting down those days where, the mask and the wool sheet is revealed from everyone because there's a lot of cool people who may not have the same visibility, but are doing exceptional things within music and like really put their heart into it. And so I don't know. I always root for the underdog no matter what. I like to think of myself as one. And so I'm ready for the shifts and I'm ready to share the good gospel of being yourself, most definitely.
And that is what brings us to the whole point of this podcast. Why
Literally.
we're not created hear us out
Literally why we're
because
here.
it's
Hear
just
us
been
out,
just
please.
through our
Yes.
own like personal work, like just meeting different executives like yourselves who have incredible stories and incredible perspectives of what it means to be not just a professional but a person within music and media. Like that's the stuff that we wanted more of our audience to hear. So thank you.
Like literally, and
And
I
so
love this. Yes. I love this because you just talked about, right? So you talked about this of like you've been building, you've been making things happen, you're trying to just cultivate people just living in their truest and authentic selves and just following what their purpose is, right? Now, we're in a very heavy digital era. Like super social media is king. Like everything is happening on the socials. And I love how you've kind of touched on it a little bit throughout, your digital footprint. You're like, look, I'm not really on it that like that, right? I'm like I'm doing the do. Talk to us a little bit about like you've built your reputation pretty much offline and it's fire. I love to hear it. I'm like, yo, this is proof. Like just do the work, follow the passion. How are you continuing to build while we're in this hugely digital area like arena and area and era right now and like social media is driving a lot of things in the world. Like how do you continue to build offline in the background on the low key tip? And like what's some advice for other people who maybe of that same ilk, who aren't really big on their like digital social media presence, but they're doing the work? Like how would you advise them to continue just trudging their path?
Yeah, I think this is a really fun and challenging question for me to answer because I think it also reveals a little bit more about myself and just where I'm at. I think a large part of my career, the reason why I haven't done it is really insecurity and imposter syndrome. And I think that I can't front and be like, nah, I don't need it. I'm just gonna, do the work, talk the talk that way. No, a lot of it has been based on not wanting to step into my own light. And so I think even now, like I do recognize the importance of your online portfolio in the form of Instagram, right? I do understand that. I'm trying to get better at it on LinkedIn. I think I'm a little bit more comfortable popping it there. And then, I'm always supporting on Instagram. I think most of like my work is the form of me uplifting other artists, even if I've never worked with them, like just feeling inspired and doing that. So one part of it is, recognizing, yes, it's not my identity. Who Celena is offline is who she is online as well. And I'm really grateful about that. I do also recognize that use my social channels differently. I always tell artists this too, when like they're like, I hate TikTok, but I love Instagram. I'm like, well, let's focus our strategy here for Instagram and then just repurpose it there. So you don't have to feel like you're not authentic each place, right? So I'm kind of using my own marketing strategy for artists and putting it up for myself. So it's like LinkedIn, that's my resume, that's my portfolio. I think my manager, I swear, he's like the king of LinkedIn. There's not a day he doesn't post. And he's always like, you should post this. Or he's like, put the job description or like put up the job post like under your account so everyone will follow you. I'm like, no, like I don't want that at all. And it's like a running joke between my friends. Like every time we're at parties and stuff, I see the camera. I'm like, I like want a shirt that's like, don't put me in the recap. Like, I was like, I hate that. So I need a shirt that says that.
Yep.
So I
Y'all
think
heard it here on
That's a
Dress Out
merch
First.
idea. No, that's a
Yep.
merch idea.
You need to do that.
Money, I
I
need to do
I
that
need
one.
it. I need it
People resonate.
trademarked.
I
I need
resonate.
it. Because no, because
I resonate.
yes,
Please
and I'm
make
gonna
the
wear it
shirt.
down the streets in New York, so that way no TikTokers approach me. Like it's real.
Whoa, it's so funny. Like on my latest Instagram post, I posted a picture of like myself, my manager, and our creative director, and he was trolling me. He's like, I didn't approve this IP because anytime we're together, he takes out his phone. I said, nope. I'll be like, this isn't not my IP. I'll be like, that's not approved. This is not approved content. But like, I'm so serious. So to actually answer the question, right, it's like I recognize I have growth in areas, where sometimes I have to kind of kick my own imposter syndrome out the way. And I'm starting it with LinkedIn and I have been doing that. I also started, just with like my business account, like posting and supporting our artists on there makes me feel good. And then honestly, just posting more in general, like I think that's something that I just never really do, like even about myself personally. So I don't know, I'm taking the baby steps. So I can't fully say like, yeah, like I got it. That's why I don't post nothing type of thing. Like, no, I'm trying to find the balance. And that's the best advice I could give too is like finding the balance, like where what you're posting still feels and resonates with you. But you're not over showing yourself because we don't need to. Like everything we have is everything we need and like just overcompensating on the internet, it just don't translate in real life anyways. And so yeah. And then I think the other side of it too is like again, we keep going back to like this is a relationship industry. It's really based around community. Like, I'm super grateful that a lot of my industry peers are also like my friends. Like, we actually spend time together, outside of work, and we don't always talk about work. So I think like for me, my biggest thing too is like building community outside of the things that I'm doing. And I think that's also helped like my offline reputation in a sense, because I want to work with good people. I want to work with people who align with keeping the main thing, and understanding there's fluff and understanding that none of this really matters at the end of the day. Like, I want to be aligned with legacy makers and people who are looking at like what do they want to do after music? What do they want to do once they finally get that bag? How are they going to invest in themselves? Like, so yeah, but I think also it's just like I've dealt with so many mean people and it's tacky and it's not cool. Like, it really takes more energy to be angry and spiteful and rude. And so, no matter what, I've always meet people with kindness. I don't think there's really anyone you could say that, like, I've ever turned up on them. Maybe one or two, but they deserved it. Like, I'm very much so not that person that is doing that. I could be assertive and direct and be like, actually, no, you're wrong in a very polite way. But I'm also solution oriented. I'm never gonna like be rude and not be productive at the same time. So hopefully that kind of encapsulates it. I would say find the balance, build genuine community, be assertive where you need to, but treat people with kindness and always double down on that. The people will look crazy in the end, when you're just so nice, and they'll be like, ouch. And you're like, yeah, I just should have been a little more temperamental right there.
The way you just ate that, like, no notes.
None.
Like, I don't even have commentary. I'm just like, yes. Posting this whole clip with no caption because yes. And then she gives a summary at the end. These are
Because you
Literally
know what?
so
I
good.
realized that I could be long-winded, and I'm like, oh my gosh, get to the point. I'm like, if you didn't hear anything I said, just these three things. So I always try to like remember that when I go off on these tangents.
I feel it. No, and it's so true
we need you
because
on
you're
more
like literally
stages
speaking the
because
gospel.
for
Like
real,
what?
preaching, and today is Sunday. Preaching this
It
fucking
is
Sunday, girl. I need you to be at conferences. I'm serious. Like I need you to be on way more podcasts. Like the people need to hear and see you because it's the voice of reason for me and the self awareness. That's what I'm clocking more than anything. Because no one can tell you about yourself when you already know about yourself.
Oh yeah, I think also I love self-awareness. Sometimes I'm a little bit too self-aware, and
me too.
sometimes I like overthink it a bit. But I think through years of therapy and also lots of reflection, right? Like it becomes very adamant when the people around you aren't doing the work. And I think that's also why I have chosen to like be behind the scenes, because I I have worked and also have been surrounded by a lot of people who focus more on ego and transactions. And I clock it super easily and I know how to navigate it, but I'm not going to spend my time giving like pure energy to these people. And I think that also is like what's helped me a ton too. It's like I see it, I'm not investing in it, and then I go back and I'm like, do I do that? Or like, have I done that? And then I'm like overthinking. I'm like, I need to make sure when I go into this next setting, like I'm not like that. And so that's why I'm saying like the self-aware thing, I love it. But sometimes it could be a little overwhelming. Like I was talking to my therapist and I'm like, oh my gosh, like another thing I have to work on. So like, great, add it to the list. But if it's not growing, it's dying. We're forever evolving, and like just got to keep pushing.
I love where this conversation is going, and again, just like that transparency is so helpful for anyone in any industry, whether you're creative, whether you're an executive, whether you're just starting out, whether you're 40 years business. Like it was some gems right there. It was some gems right there. I would love to hear more about how some of this experience applies to the work that you're doing in terms of artist relations and artist management. It's funny because a lot of people think that they want to be involved in that role. But there's the reality of things and then there's the perception of things. And what would you say is probably the difference between those things? Like, what are some misconceptions that you've seen or that you've experienced, but what is actually the reality of working in artist relations and artist management?
Yeah. I would say that, well, I'll speak on the artist management side first. I think going into that, I didn't really know what I was doing, all honesty. And then once I started getting into it, I'm like, oh, I'm like a glorified adult babysitter. That's genuinely what it felt like. Um, that's when I was super young and kind of just throwing things at the wall and seeing what works. But I think even now, my relationship towards management is really helping to build, extensions of an artist and their brand. I think that so much of it really is centered around growth and development. And I think that's also just like an industry-wide thing that we've missed so much, like true artist development. I'm not an A&R. I've never really felt compelled to like be in that type of role, but I am in the business of artist development. And so even working with one of my clients, her name's Sasha Marie, right? When I first started working with her, she was just focusing on being a DJ and live events. And now her verticals have just grown exponentially. She has her own collective where they're creative and they throw parties. She also has her own series that she has out of San Diego for parties and events. She also has her own radio show. She's a DJ for so many different types of brands. And she also has merch. She has like a creative design studio where she works with her business partner on that. She's also an A&R at Warner on the pub side. And so I'm just like, that makes me so excited to see that there's so many different avenues to go down for artist management. And it doesn't have to traditionally be for, singer-songwriters or musicians. Like I'm making things work with a DJ who is more than just a DJ. And I love that. I would say for artist relations, I think when I was at Apple, I was like, wow, you guys just like go to shows and bring artists in and it's so fun. And I'm like, now being at Even, I'm like, oh, it's way more than that. Like I'm really focused on business development. I'm focused on opportunities for, artists to not only thrive on the platform, but also thrive in their career too. So I'm super grateful that I have the artist management experience, because when I talk to artists at Even, like, I'm talking to them with my manager hat. I'm talking with my label experience hat, my streaming hat, my marketing hat. And so I think also because we're new too, just figuring out as well, we're not a traditional company. We're not a DSP. We're not a distribution company. So there's a lot of different layers to it, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, I think that the perception is kind of what I felt at Apple, being able to just go to shows and relate. It's like my running joke. I'm like, how are you doing? I'm relating, I'm vibing, I'm relating, just trying to figure it out. When deep down I'm turning out decks and I'm looking at our revenue and I'm really strategizing on, the types of offerings we need to provide, or like what's like the missing link in our upload process. How can we make it more easy for people without a label to be able to be successful on the platform, or who don't even have a following? How do I help make sure that they feel like this campaign is worth it to them? So less of me going to shows and rubbing elbows and more of me being behind on the tech and data side and diving headfirst into analytics for sure.
And there you have it. Appearance versus reality. Literally in the weeds. With a lot
And you're
of
getting
this
to
stuff.
touch so many things, which I think is like, it makes me so excited to see what is literally about to be next. Because like you said, it's like, thank you, God, for giving me everything that I need to continue moving forward on this path. You're touching so many things right now, which is so cool. Like, just you even bringing up being able to like, okay, before I was rubbing elbows at the concerts and the festivals and just being on the scene. And now it's like, all right, now I'm in my business hat. How is the data, the analytics, they're showing us things. What are we doing with this information? How are we using this information well? And I think you speaking on that on this platform is so key, because that's the stuff that, I don't think people take it for granted per se. I just don't know that it's, everyone is as aware of how like vital and important that information actually is, and having it and then knowing what to do with it. It's one thing to have it. It's the other thing of knowing what to do with it. And I think you talking about that a little bit is like, it's top tier, because that is like so helpful to have someone on like, yeah, it's that part too, for sure. It's, yeah, just going and getting the artists in the shows, but then it's also equally as important to see their data, see the analytics, look at the revenue. What can we be doing? How can we be shifting what we're doing so that we're really making sure everyone at every level feels like they have an entry point, feels like they're supported, even if they may not have the team that another person has. And just all of that, I think it's super dope to hear. I'm so excited to hear what, our community has to say about all of this. Make sure I hope if you're watching it right now, drop whatever it is that you're learning in the comments, because I want to hear what you're thinking about. How is this changing your perspective at all?
Because I know
like,
y'all taking notes.
I know they are. They always are. And they hit us and they let us know. And I'm so excited to hear what you guys are taking from Celena, because I'm sitting here, I'm on mute. I'm like, how do I feel seen, heard, but then also empowered at this? It's so many things I'm feeling right now. And so let us know what you're vibing, what you're learning in the comments. How did your perspective shift just now? Mine did, but I want to hear how y'all's did, okay? Thank y'all. Here, South team, homies, we love y'all. So wait, okay. So we've now talked about Selena's had her hand over here, over here, over here. All of it, and you said it a little bit. All of this goes back to building a strong brand, not only for your personal self, which you've talked about. You know, you're building your online presence, you're in your LinkedIn bag, all of that. But then you've also talked about how you're, leveraging your various hats, like you said, of working at all these different companies to help in terms of your own strategy of helping artists to build their brands, but then also you building your own company brands. So it's a very competitive landscape that we're in right now. It's always been a competitive landscape in entertainment in general, but especially in music, and building the strong brand is crucial. This question is about to be twofold because we're kind of organically talking about how you're building your own brand, but then we're also talking about how you help artists to do the same thing. Can you talk to us a little bit on the artist front first and then on yourself on the personal tip? But how do you focus on and like double down on building a strong brand and developing, all of these different unique identities of the artists that you're working with, and then also yourself in each of these different avenues that you've been on? Like, how do you maintain building that brand and throughout the entire development process? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think the question that I usually and constantly ask myself and other artists too is what's your North Star? For some artists, their North Star is to be a sunset slot at Coachella or to get a Grammy or to chart on Billboard or to finally make money from their art, right? Like there's so many different variables. And then I think for one of my clients, I'll do Sasha again, for example, is she's like, I don't want to be like that 55-year-old DJ just at parties anymore. Like, she's not 55 and she has quite a long time before she gets there, right? But that's one of the main things that really prompted us to be like, okay, here we have Sasha Marie. What are all your different verticals underneath it? Like, what are you passionate about? I always tell people too, especially like students or people who are just starting the industry, they're like, I want to work at Apple or I want to work at this label. And I'm like, yeah, I totally believe you could do that. But like, what do you actually like to do? Like, do you want to do, marketing because it sounds cool? Or do you want to do it because you actually have a passion for it? I've met very few marketers as a recovering marketer myself that are like, yeah, inject that. I love this so much. It's like, they're always just like, oh my gosh, like my sound just got blocked, or this is the wrong artwork, or, just like all the things that come with it. Like there's so much more to it. And I just think from like a human angle, like we naturally do better at things we are more passionate about. And I think that's also why, earlier I was like, why wasn't I doing this, sooner in terms of my current role? So talking to artists too, I think that's one thing is like, what do you actually like to do outside of music and how can we elevate that? And I know people are like, I'm tired of monetizing my hobbies, this, that, and the other. And, I don't think we have to monetize everything, but just even building like a community. That's why I love artists like Cardi B, right? Who is like fully authentically herself. And she hasn't dropped her second album, in the last 5-6 years. How long has it been, right? But she still is having people show up for her time and time again because they bought into her as a brand and as a human. It's like she could sell her whip shots, she could do, makeup, she could do fashion and all of that, but people bought into who Cardi B is. And so that's something that I always try to emphasize too with people. It's like, I don't think Rihanna like decided to be like, I'm not going to make my own skincare brand because there's so many, right? Or I'm not going to make my own, makeup line because there's so many. She's like, no, I actually genuinely love it. And the gap is I'm not finding things that work for me. So I'm going to do it. That's like how Apple came to be with the iPhone, tired of carrying around the iPod and the phone, put it together, conveniency, all of that. And so I think that innovation comes from passion. So I always encourage artists, where can we grab from that and what can we build from it? It doesn't necessarily have to be monetized, but at least having an online community and people who are going to spend $10 to $15 on you when you're ready to sell something is going to be important. I would say for like my personal brand, the same way that I navigate jobs is the same way I'm navigating my trajectory. I once heard a phrase of like, I'm in the business of a legacy and not a lifestyle. And that's exactly what I'm working on. I'm like continually grinding to get to what my life looks like after music. And my life after music is very much so probably going to be centered around education and philanthropy. I would love one day to be a college professor, and make my classroom like an agency because that's what helped me the most and set it up that way. Or even do something that really feels like an accelerator for artists and really giving equity back to them. And so I'm constantly thinking like, how does my current role align closer to that goal? And so being in my role, even being a music manager and an entrepreneur, they're directly aligning me with that. And so I say the same thing for artists too. It's like everything you're doing now, think 3 steps ahead. How is that going to get you there? And just keep building. I don't like things to be overnight. It's not sustainable and it's just really not realistic because as humans, we evolve too. So we can't expect ourselves to stay in that same space for too long. But having like the next iteration is always key. So those are kind of like my strategy as I work with artists and also how I try to mirror it for myself. Not perfect, but I'm doing a lot more soul work to align with that than I think I was before. And thankfully I'm smart, so the profession keeps it afloat as well.
And thankfully I'm smart. I know that's right. Come on. I appreciate that so much, honestly. And again, every time you speak, there's so many gems. I'm like, I can't even recap because I'm just gonna end up just saying everything you just said all over again. But yeah, cosign on it. And I love how applicable this is both to like artists and creatives, but also to professionals because these are all things that we need to keep in mind, right? It's like where you are today, hopefully, is a stepping stone to where you want to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And if you see things as that and you stay like aligned with your goals, even if those goals evolve, then everything is going to feel so much more organic and copacetic. I'd love to discuss in terms of just looking ahead, right? Given that we are in an ever changing, ever evolving world in entertainment, what do you see being some of the biggest opportunities, but also biggest challenges facing music marketing executives in the coming years? And how do you think others should navigate those things? So whether that's like, digital marketing landscape changing with TikTok, or maybe people are going back to like street teams, like IRL or virtually, like what kind of things are you excited about and how do you plan to maneuver?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think this is probably the most helpful, especially for my current role. I'm in a space right now where obviously streaming is the number one uh, form of social currency as it pertains to releases. Even I think at this point more than like traditional billboard charting, which is fascinating to me. But I think really what it comes down to is adapting. I think that in tandem with that disruption, what Drake say, I'm an Aubrey Angel. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to everyone involved, but I am. So I have too many lyrics that work. But he's always like, what he said, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness, right? And I'm kind of like, yeah, I get that. I think right? It's like we're constantly in a space like where we have to present to artists and their teams like, yeah, this is a new way of being able to monetize your pre-save campaign and being able to grow a piece of the pie. And really explaining to them, it's like, it's not even or streaming, it's even and streaming, we're just a different part of the campaign process. I think in terms of marketing, everything is really going to be focused around fans, which it should always have been, but I think even more so making more of that stride to that and really figuring out how do we keep communities engaged and, make them want to show up. I think that as consumers too, we're just way more smarter than we used to be. We could tell when things are contrived. I always see the post, get your bag, once you see an artist pops up with a product that they're doing right. And I think just with like the boom of TikTok and, turning that everyday person into a micro celebrity, because even when I go on TikTok too, I'm thinking like Alex Earl has millions of followers and then there's someone else who I've never heard of ever has the same amount, just doing their own thing, right? So I think as marketers, like we have to adapt to, maybe we're not in the age of superstars anymore. That could be a little bit controversial, right? But I think everyone in their own right could be a superstar to someone. And so how do we take those communities and make them believe, in artists as brands, and as businesses? I think it's also like in the DNA of the business, like instead of calling people who work on, artist releases or campaigns like artist managers, they're called product managers because essentially artists are seen as products, right? So I think there's a lot of like language nuances and change that have to shift. I think there's a lot of disruption that has to be done. And then I think people just have to stop being scary. Like I think AI is more of a powerful tool than people are leaning it to be. And I think there's ways to ethically utilize it and also benefit, especially on the pub side, the songwriter side. There's so many things that could be done to make things a lot more accessible. But those are some changes I would like to see. I would like to see the growth and the acceptance. But it's going to take a few people to turn those wheels and get that going. And so I encourage everyone who's really passionate about tech and the intersect of music and entertainment. Shout out to Sierra for her intertech overview. She always keeps me on going with what needs to be done. But yeah, there's just so much adaptation and, stepping out into the unknown and putting that fear behind you because we're meant to evolve. We have to. The industry has to change, most definitely.
So spot on with a lot of that. And I always say, right, it's like you have to adapt to survive. It's low-key not optional. You will not make it to the next era of your life or of your career, or you will not be able to reach the heights that you want to reach for yourself if you don't evolve. And we've seen this with even the most successful artists of all time, the most successful executives of all time across music and media. It's like you would think, oh, I never thought this person would collaborate with this person, or that they'd show up on this platform, or that they'd leverage this. But it's like we are all beholden to the changes, especially in terms of technological
Yes.
advancements.
Like, can you believe Beyonce? Like, this woman is speaking to us now. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. I'm
Like
like, she's
directly.
really
She's
chatting.
explaining
We've
what
seen
she's
Beyonce
doing.
wash her hair.
We're watching
Beyonce did
her
a whole
be a
get
human.
ready with
What?
me.
Yes. She's
Yes, but
explaining
I
to
think that's
us.
really,
Yeah, like when
yes,
y-
that's
She's
like when
doing
that's
she
IRL
actually
pop-up
broke
events,
down
inviting.
why this album was coming, I'm like, wait a second, what's it took me a week to process. I read that caption of her explaining all of this. Like, I'm like, hold on, we have a full paragraph caption from Beyonce explaining
It's her
why.
popping out for Sacred
Like,
for me.
yes.
hello?
But you know what? She's but she realized, I think she recognizes commercial value and success of her brand is she's already going to do well because of who she is, right? But it's like having that human touch to it, it's just going to build the longevity so much further for her. And I think that she knows that. So, it goes back to even like the initial thing about like my digital footprint versus my offline footprint in a sense, right? Like she's finding the balance in a way that works best for her. I think that there's a lot of variables, I'm sure, of why she's doing that, but I think the success of Sacred is really going to continue to grow because of that human side, because she's, engaging and talking to people and impacting direct consumers and people who have aligned to it with the Monets of the world, you know what I mean? And other influencers as well. But yeah, I'm super excited for more artists to do that, and just to like really be human again. And it's almost like we're going backwards, but like in the best way. I'm
That's what
here
I
for
was
it.
thinking when you were talking earlier. I'm like, it does feel like that because like y'all remember when, and we even have older songs like we're gonna party like it's 1999 because everyone thought the world was gonna just go crazy in 2000, like, or just even when the computer started to evolve and everyone was like, what's going on? Oh my God, is this the end? Like what? And then we got smartphones and everyone was like, what's going on? Is this the end? The end? Is it here? Like, and so seeing how we're continually, it's like, and that's the thing that I love how you said, you're like, what's your North Star? I try because it can be. It can. There's so many things. There's and overconsumption is a real thing, and there's so many things that are happening at one time, and technology is evolving
Because
so
you will get
fast.
distracted,
So
child.
you will
You will
get
get
so
distracted.
distracted,
Like distractions will look
and
like opportunities.
hello,
Ooh.
and they will, and you're trying these things, and some things are scary, like you said. It's like, oh, AI, what is this thing? Oh my God, is it taking our jobs? What's happening? We're striking. What's going on? I don't know. And so I think that like you talking about that right now, like everything is kind of we're gonna if we all just continue to remind ourselves as we embrace adaptation and as we embrace newness that like everything was new at one point. So just go with it. And if it feels like something that you might be interested in, it's okay to try it. And if it doesn't work, take it out of your toolbox and we're not going to use that tool next time. And we're going to keep going and we're going to keep finding other tools to put in the toolbox. But for right now, we'll just try this thing. And it's okay if it works and it's
Yeah.
okay if it doesn't.
And it's also okay to not have an opinion on things that you don't understand. I think that we could really benefit from that too. I always say it to myself as well. Like, even there, I think we're talking about like overconsumption, right? Like, every single Thursday at store turn, there are so many releases. I get overwhelmed. Like, I'm still listening to Billie Eilish's album that came out in May. Like, I listen to Kate Nas a little bit and I'm like, okay. Like, and listen to Ira Star and I'm like, this is fire. I'm listening to Thames and I'm like, I really want to digest this. So like I take time with it. And so people are asking me like, did you listen? Did you listen? Like, what do you think? I'm like, genuinely, I haven't given it enough energy yet. And I want to, but couldn't even tell you. You know, there's always these debates about sophomore album slump or I miss the old Kanye, like whatever, right? Like, but I'm very much so in a space now where instead of trying to feel a part of the conversation, I'm like, I'll come to it when I'm ready. If you still want to talk about it, great. Especially when it comes to my opinions. Also, like sometimes I just keep a lot of things to myself more than anything. Especially if I don't really understand it yet. I'm like, there's so much power in being quiet and in doing research before speaking. And I think that's a lot of like how tech advances in music have been too. And also sometimes just like not enjoying it. It's like some of the AI Bad Bunny songs are pretty fire. Like, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm like, I can enjoy this in peace. Like, I recognize, you know, where it stands in the art form and all of that. And I don't necessarily need to write a dissertation about it. But I think that sometimes we can enjoy art for what it is. And it's just to be art, just to be enjoyed. Like, not everything needs a think piece.
Not
That's
everything
the
needs
gym.
a think
Yeah, you know what? That's the
piece.
caption. That's the caption. That is the caption for all of
That
this.
that is the name of this episode.
Not everything needs a think piece. It's so true. Like,
Yeah, and
yeah.
also it's like if depending on the topic, if it consumes you and upsets you that much, and it's not even something that's actually like relevant, just let it go. Let other people talk about it. There's a lot of things I don't talk about. And people don't believe me because I talk a lot. But there's a lot of things I just don't talk about. Because either I don't know or mostly because I don't know. If I don't know enough, I'm just like, y'all got it. Y'all got it.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. Like, I could chat, but I'm also kind of like, whenever I see the timeline in an uproar, I'm like, I'm gonna stay out of it. I'm gonna let y'all, I'm gonna
I'm
let
gonna
the
let y'all
Twitter
have
fingers
this
do
one.
its thing.
Yep, do
But
your thing. Mhm.
yeah, because sometimes people be like loud and wrong. And like, maybe not even from like a factual side, although a lot of times factual side, but also from like a heart posture. I'm like, oof, like if that's what you think about this, I don't know what you want to think about other things.
That
Yeah.
part. See, I'm sorry, I
Mm-hmm.
gotta break out
Mm-hmm.
into song every time
Every
a
time
word
we
has
do that
been
a lot on
said.
this. They know. Y'all know. You watching it. You know we break out in song every episode, y'all. Come on. Don't be surprised. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Selena, what is one gem or however many gems? Honestly, not one. What's a gem that you would want to share with rising creatives, creative professionals, creative entrepreneurs who may be looking to forge a similar path? Like, what's the gem? What's the piece of advice that you would give?
Yeah, I think one that I always tell people is that there genuinely is room for everyone. I think that that's something that as I've gone along in my career of having unnecessary competition or passive aggressiveness from people, And one of my homegirls, Ifrada, she has, I think in her Instagram bio, she's like, I think she said something along the lines of like, how can I be in competition when I'm rooting for you? And I'm like, that's my energy all the way, because I'm very aligned on the fact that I'm on my own path. And I think that's something that even when I stray away from that, when the imposter syndrome kicks in, or I see another power player's list goes up and I don't even get a mention, or I see this happen and I'm like, oh man, am I good at my job? Like, do I suck? I get in my head about it genuinely. And now it's a lot different than maybe that mindset that I had years ago. Now I kind of see it as like, wow, I'm so glad that this person finally is getting the flowers they deserve. And like, it inspires me to keep going. So I think my whole thing is, yeah, like there's room for all of us. And it takes so much energy to be jealous or envious. And it's really a disservice to God, because we're so uniquely made. And like I have to remind myself too that like how I do one thing, like someone may not be able to do it the same way I do. Or maybe there's things that I do that someone's like, oh my God, I love the way Celena does it, and I would never know, right? And I think that forgetting that we have these skills and we have these tools and these resources that are specifically made for us to use, like when we get outside of that and start wanting to be like someone else, or start thinking that it can't happen for us, it's such a disservice to like our growth, and our potential. So I always tell people that too, especially like coming up, when I know there's high turnover roles and entry level positions. I know there's limited options. I know it's like, how do I get a job? And they say I need more experience. I don't have experience. A lot of stuff people make up, like genuinely. Like a lot of times people don't even know what they're doing. There's been times I'm in so many rooms where I'm like, what? Got it. Okay. And these people are making way more money than I am, have way bigger titles than I am. And so yeah, I'm like, if they can do it, I could definitely do it, type of thing. And that's no shade to them, but it's just like a reminder of like, I'm on my own path. And who knows, maybe when I get there, I don't even want that. And so that's why I think it's always more to stay in your little lane, bring some friends along the way, network across the board. I feel like so many people always try networking with people that are maybe like 2 or 3, titles ahead of them. But my peers, my homegirls, my friends in the industry, like we're all out here trying to get it the same way, because we're all on the same level. There's definitely people that are way above me, and I love that, and I'm like, keep going, type of thing, right? But yeah, I'm just like, we could all do it.
But I hear you on that though, and I hear you, because yes, I'm consistently inspired by my peers. And it's true, you do be in some rooms with people who are way ahead or who are making way more, and it's just like, no tea, no shade. But if you could do it, I definitely could do it. And that's how I feel about top office in this country, by the way. I'm so serious. I look at the people who have been elected and I'm like, you know what? Imposter syndrome be gone, because, hello?
But I said we could all eat for real. And I think that's like the main thing too, is like it doesn't take anything off of you like helping someone else, or like I've just been in too many spaces like where that hasn't been, a norm. Like one of like my old coworkers also is like the head of she oversees all the A&R stuff at Parkwood, and like you would never know, like she's so incredibly humble, incredibly bright, everything, right? And so she's like so behind the scenes, and I'm like, if people really knew like how freaking fire you are, like I'm like, dang. And that's kind of how I see so many of like my peers too. And those are the people that I like being around, because if like people don't see them, I see them. And and I'm here for that.
And we see you, girl.
And we
Thank you.
see
Thank you. I see
you.
y'all. I love what
hear
y'all
us out.
are doing.
Okay, we see you. Let us know.
Yes.
So really, let us know like our favorite question of the whole interview. How can we, me, Lottie, the Hear Us Out community, how can we be supporting you? How can we be amplifying what you're doing? How can we show up for Celena? Let us know.
Yeah, you know what? This may not be the standard answer, because I couldn't even tell you what projects I have coming up and, later down the line or this year, simply because I genuinely don't know. But if you pray, pray for me. If you don't, keep me in good thoughts and encourage me. That's really it. I started doing this thing on my Instagram story where I've been sick, so I haven't done it recently, but where every Monday I like post what do you need prayer for, and I'll send voice note prayers to people who respond. And there's some people I've never met that are just DMing me, and I do it. And I tell you, like, it brings me so much joy, but I love like the response back. They're like, wait, what? You just sent me a voice note? They're like, I don't even know you. And I'm like, yeah, why not? But that's like my love language, and praying for others and encouraging them. So if I could ask for anything, it's just that in return. And if you can't do it, even doing it from afar, even a like, even a this is cool, I'm here for it. I appreciate it all.
I love it.
That's so beautiful. That resonates with
Love you
me so
singing again.
strongly because, like, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, like, it's just the fact that everybody can use some encouragement. No one has ever been upset or hurt by the fact that you supported them,
It's hard
right?
out here, especially in this industry where we're so trained to just be competitive and be at the top and do all this. And I'm like, from like when you even take aside the industry, even take aside your title, like whatever, like from a society angle, even things that are happening on a global scale, like we just lack so much empathy. And it's so disheartening to see just terror happen across the board in our communities here in the States, and obviously everything that's happening for Palestine and like all that as well. It's like we just lack so much human empathy. And I think that, I try my best. I'm not Mother Teresa, Gandhi, none of that. But like I genuinely out here just on a mission to be like, it makes me feel good to help others feel good. And in a space like where that's not really the norm working in music, like it makes me want to keep going, even if people look at it like, what is she doing? Like, I don't care. I'm like, someone will benefit from it one way or the other. But yeah, as humans, we need more empathy, more understanding, more just like stillness and understanding. And it's okay to disagree. It's okay to not have the same opinions and values, but like, just don't be mean. Like, why are we? I don't know. That's my take.
We see each other. That's all I gotta say.
For real.
We see each
For
other.
real. I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. This has been like everything. Y'all, please, like I said, throw everything, every gem you've learned, throw them in the comments. We want to hear it. This is such a treat. Thank you so much for joining us today, Celena. We love it.
And thank you for holding space for people like me who probably would never really even talk about like my journey outside of, the occasional Zoom panels that I do or going to talk to students. I really don't ever have the opportunity. So thank you for seeing me, providing me with really like my first podcast ever. So I'm super grateful.
Ew, period. You heard it first.
Thank you.
Number one, first one. We
Thank
love it.
you.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Hear Us Out, the Music and Media Blueprint, brought to you by River and Lottie. If you love what you heard, hit that subscribe button. And of course, make sure to join our Lay Low community for exclusive updates and behind-the-scenes access. Now remember, friends, keep going, stay motivated, and stay inspired. You got this. We believe in you. See you next time.